Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. On today's show we have Baleba. Could there be a cut price deal on the cards for Manchester United? Do we still want him? There's some very valid reports coming in about a cut price Carlos Baleba deal. I'm going to go through the pros and the cons of Carlos Baleba. I know there's two camps of Baleba. There's the people that just want him based off his form last season, and then there's the people that are like, stay far away from him after what he's shown us at the start of this season. I think there's somewhere in the middle. I'm still optimistic about this deal. I would still take this deal, but I can't get my words out. I absolutely do have some red flags coming through from this deal that I want to discuss, and if they are solved, then I would be on board to bring Baleba in, and I'll explain that in a minute, and I want to have a discussion around it as well. Also, Ruben Amorim, what does he have to do from now until the end of the season, let's say he's going to stay until the end of the season, to prove to me, to prove to you that he is the right man for the job? Because it's all well and good going beating Wolves 4-1. It was great to see us score a few goals, but it's Wolves. They're probably one of the worst Premier League sides that we've ever had. I'm genuinely thinking that they could struggle in the Championship. So what does Ruben Amorim have to do? And I've been thinking about it. I've wrote a list of things that I would like to see. I want to discuss them with you guys as well. And also we have some news on the players heading to AFCON. Mazraoui and Bumo and Ahmad. Will they be available for the Bournemouth game? There's been an update on that, and loads of other Manchester United news and just topics to get into. Get your super chats in. Happy Tuesday everybody. It's good to be back on the shows. It's just me and you today, you guys watching or listening, and me, Beth, speaking to you. So get involved and let me know what you're thinking and feeling. Let's have a good old debate, a good old chat. Get your cup of tea or coffee. I'm a coffee girl through and through. Definitely not a tea drinker unless I'm violently hungover. What about you guys? And get settled and let's get into the news. Speaking of which, that is a very good coffee that I just made. But let's get into it. Cut price Baleba deal. Welcome everybody to the show. So it is a risky deal. High risk though, high reward. That is what I like to say. Sometimes you've got to risk it for a biscuit. Sometimes you've got to take the risk to get that massive reward out of it. And there's a lot of ifs and buts. And there is absolutely a world where Manchester United overpay for Carlos Baleba because it's the easy deal to do, despite it being a lot of money. And he doesn't work out. And everyone sat there saying, well, could have told you that from the start of this season, the start of the 25-26 season, that it wasn't going to work. But there's also another side of it. There's also a side of it where you could be getting a ridiculously talented player in sort of an open race. Well, that's unless Bayern Munich have something to say about it. There's some news about Bayern Munich going for Carlos Baleba as well. A player that really wants to come. And if you nurture the talent that was there in that past season, last year, with Carlos Baleba, well, this year, but last season, you could have a seriously talented player on your hands at 21 coming into the football club. So with football, it's very reactionary. You know, you have a few bad games, suddenly you're an awful player. You have a few good games, suddenly you're world class. But with Baleba, he has shown that he can be an excellent player. He has shown he's got bags of ability. But it's just whether we can get that ability out of him. It's just whether that is there a mentality issue there? There's warnings of that at the start of the season. But I want to go through the news and I want to get into it. So this is coming from Sky Sports Switzerland. And Manchester United could be in line for a cut price deal on Brighton midfielder Carlos Baleba in 2026. The report states that Brighton has changed their stance over an exit and will now consider offers worth €85 million, which converts to £74.3 million, a cut price on the £100 million or more that was stated previously. Man United worked on a deal to sign Baleba in the summer, but opted for other targets and other positions within the team. If you would have told me in the summer of 2026 that you would have been able to get Carlos Baleba for £74.3 million, I would have been over the moon. He was fantastic last season. And he's 21 years old. He has all the attributes that I feel like we need in that midfield. If you would tell me now we're about to spend £74.3 million on Carlos Baleba, I would be a lot more dubious. But it just depends what Baleba you get. And it is a risky transfer for Ineos. In their heads and in their minds, and I'm excited to actually get Ben Jacobs back on the show this Thursday to speak to him about it because he has good insight on this deal. But the last time we got an update from Ben, from Manchester United's side, Ineos' side, we've scouted him, we've done the due diligence on him, we've researched him, and he is the guy that we want to go for. That's why we went for him in the summer. That's why we made a play to go and get him. it got completely shut down in the summer. We weren't willing to pay over 100 million, which is what Brighton were demanding, and that deal faded away very, very quickly. But if you can get the player that you thought you were getting in the summer for £74 million, at 21 years of age, if he goes on to be what Manchester United have scouted and done the homework on and tracked and done the research on, they would see that as a very, very good transfer. You really would. In the summer, Baleba was being likened to the sort of Declan Rice signing, the Caicedo signing. I mean, we had a Brighton fan on this show saying that they think that Baleba actually has a higher ceiling than Caicedo. Brighton apparently wanted massive money for Baleba in the summer because they themselves, who are excellent scouts, by the way, think Baleba has a higher ceiling than Caicedo. Caicedo's arguably been the best centre defensive midfielder in Europe this season, if not the league. Declan Rice has had something to say about that. Of course he has. He's been fantastic. But Baleba's not showing it currently. And is there something in your mind that says, well, why are Brighton willing to drop the price? If they think he's this good, if they think he can be the next Caicedo, why are they willing to go to 74 million when in the past they've always got absolutely top dollar for all of their talents? Probably because they want to avoid another Evan Ferguson situation. Evan Ferguson was touted to go for 100 million or more, was being labelled the next Harry Kane, and hasn't gone on to fulfil that potential as of yet. They probably don't want the same thing to happen to Baleba. They probably want to cash in while the iron is still relatively hot. And if Baleba continues to have this the season that he had at the start of the season, through the season and into next season, then they could be in really tricky waters of trying to get a decent fee for him. But it's just whether you can get that player out of him that was there and is there. Because you just don't turn into a bad player overnight. And there has been one-hit wonders in the past. But I think a one-hit wonder is just someone who hasn't nurtured their talent properly, who hasn't had the right mentality, who hasn't had the right arm around the shoulder, who hasn't been developed properly. That's what I think happens to one-hit wonders. The talent's obviously there. It doesn't just go away. They've not magically just lost the talent. It's just, what do you do with that talent? How do you guide yourself? Who is guiding you? And I think there are all the questions that need to be asked of Carlos Baleba and whether we've got it in us to unlock him, because we don't have the best track record of nurturing talent, of getting the best out of talent. I mean, you could go through multiple players that have come in who's massive potential, but we've just not been able to get the best out of them. And with Baleba, when he's already on that kind of cusp of can be amazing, but currently needs a lot of work, do you trust Manchester United to be able to go and develop him? What I will say, in the last game, he looked a lot more like himself. I know they ended up losing. Was it against Villa? I know Villa played Arsenal this weekend. What a cracking game. But Brighton FC, I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, it was that Villa game. It was on the Wednesday, because there's so many midweek games at the moment. It's all merging into one. Brighton played Villa at home, and I know Villa ended up winning 4-3, but I actually thought Baleba was pretty good in that game from what I saw of it. And I know that he didn't start in that game, but was it that game? It wasn't that game. Which game was it? Yeah, it was. It was that game. It was that game. He started in that game and he was pretty good, and then he ended up coming off. But I thought he looked a lot more like himself in that game from what I saw of it. And I would need to watch the full game back, but I saw a glimpse of him where I thought, okay, that's looking more like the Baleba from last season. So let's see what happens with him. But they're the kind of thoughts at this moment. If you can get him in for a decent price, he's shown glimpses in the past that he is what we need. It's just very, very, very risky. Carlo Montana says 50 max, if not, take 75 to 80 and go for Anderson. I think this is a really good point, actually. And let's run a poll, actually. Would you sign Carlos Baleba for £74 million? Would you do that deal? Let's run a poll on it. I think he is going to be the guy that we sign. But if you ask me, would you rather sign Baleba or Anderson? I'd say Anderson. If you said to me, would you rather sign Baleba or Adam Wharton? I'd say Adam Wharton. But Adam Wharton is a very different profile of player than Anderson or Baleba. Very different. Anderson's kind of like Baleba and Wharton merged together, like a hybrid. Wharton is very Carrick-esque, and I'm not saying he's Michael Carrick, but that's sort of the way he plays. And Baleba is very... He's very robust in that midfield, very physical. Don't get me wrong, he can be very good on the ball, but he gets about, he intercepts, he breaks up the play. He's very, very good at that. Very good at carrying the ball forward, Carlos Baleba, when he's doing well, when he's playing at his best. But we've not seen as much of that this season. But I would prefer Anderson, I would prefer Wharton, but this is where it breaks down when it comes to Manchester United. Wharton needs Champions League football. His agents made that very clear. I think he spoke on TalkSport, was it? Or he spoke publicly, talking about how the next step for Adam Wharton is Champions League football. Can United get it? Elliot Anderson's going to have a queue of clubs lining up for him. And if you remember, Ben Jacobs dropped that big hint that Anderson is going to be available cheaper than that £100 million report. So if Anderson's going to cost 70 million and if Baleba's going to cost 70 million and we end up with Baleba, I would much prefer to go for Anderson. But I think Anderson will have more clubs in the queue than Baleba will have because of the way their seasons are going. And Anderson's probably going to go off to the World Cup and do very, very well in there as well. Baleba's not going to the World Cup. Unfortunately, Cameroon didn't make it. But that might even be more, that may make him more attractive to Manchester United and Ineos because they can just go in for that deal straight away and get it sorted. Whereas Anderson, you're going to have to wait throughout the World Cup, and Manchester United, might not want to do that. They might just want a straightforward transfer. But usually, the player that a lot of people want, or the thing that a lot of people want, is the asset that's the most worthwhile. That's gonna pay off very, very well for you. That's going to reap the most reward. So let's see what happens. If Manchester United are very, very sure that they can get the best out of Baleba, I'd be open to around 70 million deal for him. But there is midfielders out there that I just think would be better for us. It's just whether United can get into that queue. I'm going to talk about in a minute how United can get into that queue, how United can compete for the Whartons, for the Gahys, for the Andersons. And Amorim's got to show us from now until the end of the season that he can compete for Champions League football, that he can turn this club around, that he can go and attract these top players. How he's going to do it, I want to have that discussion very, very shortly. But get your votes in down in the polls as well and let me know what you're thinking. Just to kind of round up on Carlos Baleba there, we have to go for someone that's going to fix the mobility issue of our midfield. I think he does that. We've got to go for somebody that is an elite ball winner. I think at his best, he does do that. We've got to go for somebody who is progressive and press resistant. These are all the kind of attributes I want to tick off in Manchester United's midfield. At Baleba's best, he ticks both them boxes. He's 21, fits the age category of, you could have a top midfielder there for the next decade. You have, the price tag, is he worth it? If it's 74 million, he becomes more worth it. But it's just whether he can get back to his best. But then you look at them attributes, and to be fair, it just depends on the way you want to play. Adam Wharton's not someone who's going to be running around that midfield, intercepting every single bit of play. He's more of a dictator. Elliot Anderson sort of does both. It just depends what profile Manchester United are wanting. But get your opinions in and what you're feeling. We need to sign 2 midfielders, and I've said this multiple times. My absolute dream this summer would be Anderson and Wharton or Anderson and Stiller. That Anderson is my top target. But you don't always get your top targets. And if United don't end up getting Champions League football, I think Baleba seems like a nailed-on transfer because he really wants to come to Manchester United. It's his preference. And I think based off his form at the start of the season, he's not going to have as many clubs competing over his signature. But let's see. We've got another super chat in from Rob Always United saying, how come we can only play well for one half, Beth? Consistency. Letting the game coast. Mentality, adaptations in game. I mean, there's so much to talk about, and I want to talk about Amorim in a second as well. Let me just give you the update on AFCON as well, because people keep asking. Ricky asked it on the forum yesterday. Are we going to have Ahmad, Mazraoui, and Mbeumo for the Bournemouth game on Monday? You would have thought, with them players likely to go to AFCON very, very soon, that Amorim might have, maybe given Shea Lacey a bit of time. We'll get onto that. Whether he would have started Joro maybe in that game, just kind of, get a start in him because he had a game on the bench before Mazraoui goes to AFCON with De Ligt being out as well. Ahmad's going to be a difficult one to replace, absolutely. But they might well be available for that Monday night game. And do you see any changes, or does he keep just playing his best players? Because there's no doubt Mbeumo and Ahmad and debatably Mazraoui make our best 11? Does he just keep playing the best players for as long as he's got them? Well, will they be available for that Bournemouth game? This is what Ruben Amorim had to say. He said, Ruben Amorim on Mbeumo, Ahmad and Mazraoui being available for Monday. He said, the club is talking with national teams. Let's wait for the middle of the week. I don't know for sure, but we are doing our job and the national teams are talking with us, and that is a good sign. So basically, he's not 100% sure whether they're going to be available for Monday. I would say the likelihood is they will be available, but it's not 100%. That'll be the last game they're available for before their relative teams either get knocked out of the competition or win the competition. But if they're not there for Monday night, it's a massive, massive blow to our right-hand side, and Amorim will have to adapt and overcome. Of course he will, but I'm hoping they are going to be available, but it's not 100% nailed on yet. Just want to see what this poll is on with, would you sign Baleba for 74 million, yes or no? I'm going to do my vote in there. It really just does depend how many options we have in the summer and if we do have Champions League football. And let's talk about the Amorim situation, because we did just win 4-1, and like I said, I really don't want to be negative, I want to be positive, because there were some really good performances in there. Bruno and Mount played really well together. Mount was class. Aiden Heaven had a really, really good showing. But Wolves, like I said at the start of the show, arguably one of the worst, if not the worst Premier League sides we've ever seen. If they carry on the way they are, they could struggle in the Championship. I'm not joking. They could barely string 3 passes together at the start of the game. They're really, really, really poor. Really poor. So I'm not getting carried away with that game, and I'm certainly not using it as a game to be like, see, this is what we can do. I would have been very, very worried if we didn't win that game. Winning it 4-1 is nice. It's nice to get a few goals. It's nice to, have that scoreline to go away with. But we still didn't keep a clean sheet, which I'm frustrated with. And you can't thoroughly judge Manchester United on a game like that. You just can't. And I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's like when you're playing Sunday League and you turn up and, it's a team that you just know from minute one, you're going to absolutely batter them. It's not really that competitive, is it? And I don't want to be disrespectful to Wolves, because they've had some great teams over the last few years in the Premier League, but they've really kind of let that team go, and the fans are suffering for it. So what does Amorim have to do to get us into the Champions League? It's such an open race right now. I just kind of want to get into my thoughts and feelings around Amorim, around United, and I want you guys to get involved as well, because I got so much stick for saying I'd be genuinely considering whether we need a change of manager. Considering it. Because what I don't want is, I don't want Manchester United to miss out on Champions League football when we are absolutely capable of securing it this season. Not because of how good the squad is, but because of how poor the other teams in the league are playing and how many points are being dropped left, right and centre. If Manchester United had beat West Ham, who are odds on to get relegated, and I don't think West Ham will get relegated, but they are odds on to get relegated, and beat Everton, who had 10 men at Old Trafford, we'd be 1 point behind second. Like, we really could have, or we still can, compete for that Champions League next level. If we don't get the Champions League football, it's going to be really difficult. And I know people will mention, well, we got Keane, we got Mbeumo this season. That's not going to continue season upon season upon season. We really need Champions League football to attract not only players to sell them the project, but for money. For FFP, and I know them rules are slightly changing and it's going to benefit Manchester United, but we need the money. It's huge, huge money. So the reason why I was open to a change of manager and thinking about it is because I just don't want us to do something about it when it's too late. I don't want there to be a change when Man United aren't able or are not in a position to realistically still secure Champions League football. It's such a swinging door moment for Manchester United. So that's why I was genuinely considering it. One, because I'm absolutely fed up to the back teeth of the poor performances. Wolves, I'm happy with that game. Like, I can't really complain about it apart from not keeping a clean sheet. But you score 4 goals, you're happy. But we really need to see something over the next few games from Ruben Amorim and this team to show we are capable of competing for Champions League football. We should continue to invest in Ruben Amorim and invest in him throughout January as well. And this is a team that can go get that Champions League football. We have to be there next season. And people say, well, at the start of the season, we just wanted top 6. We just wanted Europa League. Europa League was the target. And, I mean, it sounds silly saying that as a United fan because we should always be in the Champions League. But from where we're at, 15th, yeah, Europa League would be nice. But the league is so open this year and everyone's beating each other that it's a prime opportunity to go and secure that Champions League football and jump ahead in our development. Europa League is an absolute necessity, but Champions League would really kind of boost us in that race of getting back to the top. So I want to be able to do it. I really want to be able to do it, but what does Amorim need to do? And I'm going to go through a few things. And just before I go through them things, remember, guys, Ben Jacobs is back on the show at 2 p.m. on Thursday. So excited for that. I'll ask him for an Anderson update. I'll ask him for a Baleba update. I'll ask him for an update on Amorim's future and the feelings around him with the board. You know, Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox and Sergeant Ratcliffe watching on it, the Molyneux last night. I'm excited to kind of catch up with him. Did you see him? He was speaking to Donald Trump on Friday, Ben Jacobs, here, there and everywhere. And also tomorrow, banging, and this is another reason why we need to be in the Champions League, banging watch along on That's Football with Goldbridge. Real Madrid versus Man City at 8 p.m. So just make sure that you're kind of there for that. And That's Football Friday night, Bundesliga, Union Berlin versus RB Leipzig, live match footage and a watch along. We changed it up this week. Me and Mauds are doing it. Me and Mauds are doing Bundesliga watch along and I can't wait. We've got so many things planned for it. It's going to be a really interactive stream. I can't wait to kind of scout about in that game. Leipzig, Union Berlin. It's going to be a great game. So make sure you kind of tuned in for that on Friday on That's Football. You get to watch the live match along with us. It's going to be great. But this is what I wrote down to kind of, I wanted to finish the show on this and I'll probably end up going on a massive, massive tangent. But what does Amorim have to do to convince me he deserves another season? Now, I know that I'm not the be-all and end-all of Manchester United Football Club, and there's fans out there with many, many different opinions. So this is just, I'm just kind of relaying what I think and I feel and what I want to see now to convince me that he deserves another season at Manchester United. And I want you to get in your comments on this. And what do you want to see from Ruben Amorim, first and foremost? I want to see what you guys think as well. And the first thing that I wrote down was tactical adaptation and consistency. Within his 13 months in charge, we have struggled to get results together. We really have. A lot of the games we've won them just, or they've been against relegated sides or newly promoted sides. We need better results. We absolutely need better results. What is it now? 13 wins in 13 months in charge in the Premier League. We need to see better. So, and with tactical adaptation, I know he needs more players. I know he needs a bigger squad, but he's got to be able to adapt tactically to prove why he deserves to bring in the players that are going to make his system work and his system tick. Because, you know, Pep Guardiola adapts his system. One of the best managers that's ever been. There is managers that will tactically adapt. Glasner adapts his system. He's adapted it throughout the course of his career. Amorim just needs to adapt a little bit more. And I know he has adapted in recent times, but not enough in my opinion. For example, that Everton game, when they were down to 10 men, he just wouldn't adapt tactically. He wouldn't stray. And we could have won that game if he did. We really should have won that game. We didn't even equalise. So I need to see some tactical adaptation from Amorim to prove that this system can work in the Premier League. And I know he's not got all the players he wants. I know he's far from having the squad he wants. But you've got to win now in football. You've got to win now and in the future. And he's got to figure out a way to win with that group of players, play decent enough football with that group of players to then bring in the players that he needs and win in the future with the way he wants to play as well. So there needs to be a balance. Stephen Brown says, for me, Amorim must be backed in January to get the best possible position for Europe. If he can do that, then he will deserve another season. Rob McCormack says, Mount FC alive and well. Absolutely. Mount, what a player. Rob, I spoke about him enough on the fans forum though. Tune into that after this if you didn't watch it. It was a great fans forum last night. Thank you everyone for getting your super chats in. Just on that, the Baleba poll is no 64%, yes 36% of would you sign him for 74 mil. So a lot of us gone off the Baleba signing. What I will say is you better hope we get Champions League, because if we don't, he's absolutely the midfield signing that we're making. I can guarantee it. We won't be able to compete for the Andersons and the Whartons of the world if we don't get Champions League. So that's how big it is, and it comes down. the majority of it all does fall onto the manager. As much as, of course, Ineos has to take responsibility, the ownership has to take responsibility, the players have to take responsibility, it will fall onto Amorim's head. So what can he do to get that? And like I just mentioned, the first thing, tactical adaptation and getting consistency in results. The next thing is, and this is sort of the same as tactical adaptation, really, it's issues that we're seeing in the system. We beat Wolves 4-1, one of the worst Premier League sides we've seen, and that was all well and good. But there was still wide open spaces. The midfield could still get passed through with one splicing pass. That concerns me. Wolves hadn't scored a goal in 540 minutes in the Premier League, 5 games, and they managed to score against us. I know we scored 4 goals and we won 4-1, but we still conceded again. We've had 1 clean sheet all season. And on paper, we're playing 5 defenders. I know Ahmad's like a wing back, but we're playing a back 3. We're playing wing backs. We're playing with 2 in midfield there. Why, with a team that is, I know it's meant to be a back 3 with wing backs, but why is a team that is oftentimes lining up with a back 5 conceding so many goals? We've got to leave less spaces. And we spoke about it a little bit on the fans forum. With Crystal Palace, their number 10s drop into that midfield, close down the space. Ours need to do that more. There's certain players that are better at it than others. Mount's really good at doing it. But the 10s need to drop in. The centre-backs need to push up. The wing-backs need to drop. We need to have a unit that stops teams from just playing through you. I was watching Arsenal against Aston Villa, and don't get me wrong, Villa were fantastic, and I think they deserved to win that game in the end. I was buzzing when they won that game. But you just look at the way Arsenal set up. You've got banks of 4 where it's just so difficult to break through. And Aston Villa were putting some great through balls, cutting the lines to manage to get through that Arsenal setup. But we've got to set up in a more structured way to stop conceding goals. It's so important. So there's a few issues in the system, which, I said it on the show yesterday. I don't even know if you buy the likes of Anderson and a Watt and you play them together, if it still gets solved. We keep speaking about the midfield. And don't get me wrong, the midfield absolutely does need an upgrade, and them players will absolutely make us better. But it's so hard when there's just 2 of you. No matter who it was. If it was Rodri and Kanté in there, I think it'd still be difficult with 2 players. You've got to have the team working together. It's a team game, and the whole team shape has to be better, and that's something that Amorim has to solve himself to prove that setup can work consistently in the Premier League. And it can. Conte's done it, Glasner's doing it, but you've got to set it up in the right way. So that's something I want to see as well. This is one that's it's not drastically as important for me as performances, but improving results and league position. Amorim's current win percentage at United is 1.42 points per game across 57 games, with a Premier League record of 1.15 points per game. 1.15 in the Premier League. That's relegation form. Like, it is. I'm sorry, but it is. So that has got to improve. And I wouldn't be as bothered with the points per game if we were seeing good football consistently and we were putting together some good performances. We were just missing out by fine margins. But I've got to see good performances. I've got to see the points tally improve a little bit. I know that's taking in points from last season and we're meant to be starting afresh, but you've got to see the points per game improve. We've got to see that. And it's got to significantly improve as well. It really has. We've got to be hard to beat. We can't be conceding as many goals, and I want to see better performances. And with that better performances, I want to see some ruthlessness. I want to see some killer instincts. I want to see some high risk, high reward. A lot of the times, we're on top. When we're on top in a game, which, it does happen when we're on top in the game, we fail to convert, we don't dominate, or even, for example, in that West Ham game, you go and score a goal and then we coast. We don't go and put a team to bed. We don't go and follow it up with another goal. Why do we keep coasting in games? And some people might say, well, it's the players. The manager is in charge of relaying messages to the players and getting them to put in a performance over the course of 90 minutes. We've got to stop coasting. We've got to be able to put teams to bed. We've got to be able to show that killer instinct. And the chemistry has to improve in the final third for sure. But that's something I want to see. I want to see United be able to go and kill a game off. I want to see Manchester United, when they're on top in a game, make it count. It's really important for us. It really, really is. So that's something I want to see as well. And that leads on to the in-game management. Just an example is Unai Emery is going up against Arteta. Arsenal top of the league. Aston Villa are on a great run of form, and they're actually, I think, second in the title now. Second in the league now. I think they're only 3 points behind Arsenal, if I'm not mistaken, because they've beat them. But in that game, it would have been very highly respectable. The third in the table, Aston Villa, City are 1 point ahead of them. They've got 30 points, Arsenal are on 33 points, and City are on 31 points. Very, very close. But it would have been absolutely respectable and commendable for Aston Villa to come away with that game with a point. Nobody would have criticised them for that. Everyone would say it's a good point, actually. But what does Unai Emery do? He smells that there's a bit of an openness in the game. He smells that Arsenal are on the ropes a little bit. He takes off Matty Cash, a defender, and I know he's a fullback and he's a good attacking fullback as well, but he takes off the defender for Buendia. And it pays off. And also two of his other substitutions, Jadon Sancho and Victor Lindelof, actually, funnily enough, ex-United players, were very much involved in that goal as well, that won them the game. So his in-game management was just spot on. It was a big risk doing that. You know, Arsenal could have easily gone and scored and they would have lost the game 2-1. But he took that risk, he could smell it, and high risk, high reward, Aston Villa go and win that game. 3 points in the bag against top of the league. United are at home against West Ham, who show little threat. They're without Somerville, they're without Paqueta, and I know Jarrod Bowen's a good player, but very little threat, and odds on to get relegated. And we're in search of a goal. This is after the equalised, by the way. And I love Lisandro Martinez, and I understand his thinking was probably he's going to dictate play from the back really well. He's going to, push us going forward, get us back to front better. But you bring on Lisandro Martinez as your substitution to go and win us the game. It's a centre-back. They're the differences. Ugarte came on. I know he came on before they equalised, but we should have gone and tried to win that game 2-0, then hold on to a 1-0. And then when it went to 1-1, that's the sub that was made. I know he's not got an absolutely massive array of subs to make, but Mainu was there. Scored a clutch winner against Lyon in the past. Scored a clutch winner against Wolves in the past. Look at what he did in the FA Cup final. Shea Lacey from the academy, and I know we've not seen much of him. We don't want to throw him in the deep end, but what's the worst that could happen? You're at home, the crowd would have been bang behind him. Probably full of confidence coming into a game like that, knowing what was at stake, that he could have been the match winner. Just take a bit of a risk. Take a bit of a risk there. So his in-game management, Amorim has not been able to affect the game in a positive way this season at all, really. There's been maybe 1 or 2 moments, but his in-game management has to change. There's so many like-for-like substitutions. There's so many substitutions that have actually gone against us in games. I mean, even in the Brighton game, which was probably one of our best overall performances of the season, we nearly threw it away with subs. Nearly, very nearly. So it ended up going to 3-2 at one point, and thankfully Brian Mbeumo scored that goal to make it a comfortable 4-2. But his in-game management has to be better, and I want to see more confidence from him in his in-game management. And then, when I speak about the Shea Lacey thing, the academy. I'm not asking for an academy starting 11, but let's just show our academy a little bit more faith. Last night, you're 4-1 up against Wolves. It might have been 3-1 at the time, I can't remember. But you're bringing on Dorgu's got potential, of course he has. But you're making a like-for-like sub, Dallo for Dorgu. Why? Could have brought Shea Lacey on for his debut. And I know we shouldn't just gift debuts, but we could have seen a little bit of something from Lacey. Mbeumo's going to AFCON soon. Amad's going to AFCON. It was a perfect opportunity to maybe give him 10 minutes, 5 minutes to see a little bit of something, get the fans excited. But you make a like-for-like sub. I know that Dorgu's an international player, but come on. You could have brought Shea Lacey on in that game, and United fans would have loved it. They would have absolutely loved it, and we would have seen a little bit what he's about. We know what Dorgu's about. Dallo for Dorgu, it's a like-for-like sub. Should have brought on Lacey, in my opinion, in that moment. And just player management, really. I want to see players starting to visibly improve under Amorim, because if I go through our squad, what players have visibly made improvement under Amorim? Mason Mount. But I think that's because he's got fit. I mean, he's always been a good player. I mean, Amorim's obviously helped him do that, and his system suits him, so I'll give him Mason Mount. Mason Mount has improved under Ruben Amorim. Luke Shaw has improved under Ruben Amorim, but they're just two players that have previously in the past been really good players. Mason Mount's won the Champions League, playing a really big role for Chelsea. Luke Shaw, Roberto Carlos, we know how good he's been in the past. Both of them very injury prone, so fair play to Amorim and his backroom staff for getting them fit and firing and confident. They're players that have improved under Amorim, but has anybody else improved under Amorim? You could argue Ahmad, just because he's getting more game time, but there's always a good player. But I need more players improving under Amorim. That's what I want to see. I want to see this system working for all the players. And I know some players need to go because they're not suited, and I know we need to bring new players in. But there's just so many areas that I just need to see Amorim take it up a level. And that's just me breaking down it's probably more what I want to see from Amorim now till the end of the season. Take a few more risks. Show us something to get excited about from the academy. Adapt in game. Let's keep a few more clean sheets. Let's get higher up the table. Let's improve your points per game ratio. There's so much more to get into, but I'm not getting carried away by Wolves, is what I'm saying. And I want to be nothing but positive. I really want to be on here in a few games' time saying, look at where we are. Look at how good our performances have been. I want nothing more than that because I want United to win. But our next 3 games in the Premier League are Bournemouth at home, Aston Villa away and Newcastle at home. 3 very, very, very decisive games. Bournemouth have had a bit of a wobble. They're not at their best selves. On Monday night, we need to win that game at Old Trafford. And I want to see a decent performance. Aston Villa away, they're on a brilliant run of form. The way they play actually suits us, being able to play off their high line. I want to see us at least compete. And then Newcastle at home, it's a home game on Boxing Day. I expect to beat Bournemouth, right? Villa away and Newcastle at home. I'm not going into the game saying he has to win. I just want to see a performance. I want to see us create open play chances. I want to see us compete. That's what I want to see from them games. But let me know how you guys are feeling. Kai says, Villa created 0 big chances against Wolves. Look, Kai, look at where Aston Villa are in the table. Aston Villa are 3rd in the Premier League table on 30 points. And I watched that game against Arsenal, and that's probably the best game I've seen of the season. Just some glorious football played. Glorious. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy to beat Wolves 4-1, but I'm not defining Amorim off a 4-1 win to Wolves. You've got to see the whole picture. I want to start seeing consistent results, consistent performances across the season. I could only dream of playing the football that was played in that Villa Arsenal game at the weekend. I want to see United play thrillers like that. Even if we're on the losing side of it, Arsenal on the losing side of it, they still played a really good game of football. I don't mind being on the losing side. If we're showing a bit, we're showing a performance to get us off our seats. That's what I want to see. Forsey says, Amorim has stated multiple times that the system will evolve when the players are ready for it. Clearly, the counter-attack merchants aren't ready. Away Ayub says, hi, Queen Beth, this colour looks magical on you. Thank you very much. Never really been a purple lover, but this jumper is very, very nice, actually. It's Boohoo Man, if you're wondering. But thank you, everyone, for your super chats. Just to kind of round up there, I feel like I went on a massive tangent, but 65% say no to Carlos Baleba for 74 million, 35% yes. Also, just a little bit on that Baleba stuff as well. Apparently, Bayern Munich are monitoring that. So kind of stay aware of the fact that Bayern Munich are interested in that Carlos Baleba deal. And does that make him more attractive to you? So despite being put off by Brighton's high demands, United reportedly remain interested and could revisit if the price becomes more negotiable. And then the same article goes on to say that Bayern Munich view Baleba as a potential long-term replacement for Goretzka, whose future at the Allianz Arena remains uncertain. So Bayern Munich could go in for Baleba, but I think a lot of it depends on how Baleba's form picks up between now until the end of the season. I want to see the best Baleba back, fit and firing, and it puts United in a position. If you get Champions League football, who do you go for? Anderson's top of my list, but who's top of yours? Mr. Miracle says, Beth's list, which I agree with, tactical adaptation, in-game management, man management, adopting the philosophy of our club, youth, courage, success. Sounds like a crap manager to me 1 year in. The thing is, he is 1 year in, and he's still got to tick all them boxes. I like how he speaks off the pitch, but it's not enough to carry him. I like his personality. I like the way he speaks off the pitch, but it's not enough to continue unless some of them boxes start being ticked for me. Mr. Miracle, I agree. You have Stephen Brown saying Amorim can't take the risk Emery does, as he's like us. He doesn't fully trust the players that we have. I think that's an interesting point, but what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen, honestly? Should have given Lacey minutes last night, says Rob Always United. Yeah, I honestly think it was just stubbornness not doing. Of course, you've got to earn minutes. Anyone's got to earn minutes, and you shouldn't just get minutes because you're an academy player, but it was a perfect opportunity, in my opinion. Saji says the attacking department is still far from the finished article, missing loads of chances per game, which in the end results in the draw. Also, Lawrence Berry says we can see in the coming weeks if Dallo and Dorgu can function defensively on either flank. Well, let's see, because Ahmad, you know, he's going to be going to AFCON, so both of them are going to get plenty of minutes. But even, and I'll come back to this on another show, but even with Cunha right now, my eyes are on Amorim. I get Cesc goes out and it causes, you know, we've not got a wealth of options up front, and this is where Højlund, you know, if he was still here, you know, he probably would have played. But Cunha's best position is in and behind the striker. We need to get the best out of Cunha. There's an absolute player in there, but he's been chopped and changed so much playing different positions this season. Let's play him in his best position and get some confidence flowing through him. Because when we've got a confident Cunha, you've got a top player. But he's not an out-and-out striker. It's never been his best position. He can do it. He can do a job. But let's get him playing in his right position, get the confidence flowing through him, and that's for Amorim to get the best out of him as well. Of course, Cunha has to take responsibility. He's an experienced player. He's not a young player anymore. He's in that 25, 26-year-old category, and he needs to do better. But we need to play him to get the best out of him as well. Kai says we played very well against Arsenal, but we lost. Yeah, it feels like a very long time ago, Kai, to be honest with you. It does. But we've seen glimpses. But we need to see more. We do need to see more. But look, everyone, I've got to wrap up. I've gone way over time, but I was in the flow and you guys are putting in some really good comments as well. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Smash a like on the video if you've not already. I hope you have a very, very, very good Tuesday. Have a brilliant rest of your week. We've got some good content coming up. So excited for Ben Jacobs on Thursday as well at 2 p.m. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.